In the era of remakes and remakes of remakes and remakes and prequels, sequels and requels, that's a thing, we now have The Killer 2024, a remake of the 1989 John Woo directed and written film by the same director this time, the remake. Is it worth you watching if you've watched the original? If you haven't watched the original, is it still worth you watching? We're going to be talking about that. I say we, as in, let's talk about it in the comments, but I'm going to be talking about that. Non-spoiler, let's jump in. An assassin tries to make amends in an effort to restore the sight of a beautiful young singer. So this time, in the pivotal roles of our protagonists, we have Natalie Emmanuel, who plays Z, we have Omar Sy, who plays Say, and we have Sam Worthington, who plays Finn, and Diana Silvers, who plays Jen. When people say this didn't need to be remade, I put that in the same vein as Point Blank. I put that in the same vein as The Crow. I'll also put this film in the same vein as this one did not need to be made. However, comparing the two is going to be your downfall because there are some stark differences. They've made our protagonist female. That wasn't a drawback for me. This doesn't feel like a woke film, so anybody that gets upset by that, that's fine. I think Natalie Emmanuel does a spectacular job at portraying an assassin that is a bit broken. She has a broken past. We have the similar story to what we've had originally. This person who's kind of groomed into becoming an assassin and now faces a moment where she does something wrong that she can't live with. She has her core code as an assassin. She has a set of rules that she has to follow. She has a boss who is Sam Worthington in this, who is Finn. And then we have the detective who is trying to keep his city together, Paris, Omar Sy, and amongst cops and people that just seem to be on the take. No one seems to be on the up and up. It's just him and his partner against the world, doing it old school on the streets, kicking ass and taking names. I like Omar Sy in this. I think he's fantastic, and I like Natalie Emmanuel because I think the chemistry when we see our two main protagonists on screen together, I think they do have chemistry. If you've never seen the original and you want to watch this version first and then watch the original if you can. This is good. It's fun, but it's not brilliant. However, the original is brilliant. And so if you have those two to compare to, it's very hard to not kind of knock this one down a peg or two. This was at the height when John Woo was doing some incredible films. This is one of them, along with every sort of dove slow motion, pigeon scene slow motion that you can have, trademarks of his filmmaking. This is one of them. The first film he dedicated to Martin Scorsese. That's the sort of filmmaking he was trying to make, the gangster type of film that was hard-hitting, like hard-boiled. Those type of films that have good emotional content, but as well as really gritty, noir-styled action. I feel like they've taken that sort of premise and made something that works for today. So I'm putting the original totally out of mind and then see what it has to offer. When it comes to the doves and the slow motion of the doves, John Woo has obviously embraced that kind of aesthetic. He loves it, and people are saying that he's known for it, so he embraces that as part of the aesthetic and storytelling. So you will be happy with the dove scenes. So Omar Sy, who plays Lupin in the Netflix series, which I also enjoy Lupin. I think he plays Say very well. He meets this very mysterious assassin when they're past a line. The moments that we see them doing action sequences together is when the film works best of all. And then we kick in the score, which I think does a beautiful job at showcasing the action that we're meant to be seeing. Now, when it comes to the action and the score, for the most part, the film does work with it. High action, high octane moments that are interspliced with, unfortunately, an incredible amount of cutting. So when you get that hand-to-hand combat or hand-to-sword combat, if you like, you do get a lot of intercuts. That's not to say you don't get to see the action, it just is cut a lot. Not so much as that, Taken 3, for example, because I enjoyed these action scenes a lot more. But I do feel like had they stepped back away from chopping that up so much and using the score to make you feel the viewer basically make the viewer feel a certain way, it feels a little bit inauthentic because you want the action to play out. You can see the choreography of the scene has been established, but it feels like they didn't have faith, or, and it's weird because it's a John Woo film. You'd expect that there'd be a certain amount of, I guess, a comfortable notion that you are okay with the scene that you've shot. The action looks great and it's choreographed brilliantly. However, with the high, it's very hard to describe, I guess, the high octane action that is on screen, that is screaming at you through the score whenever there's an action sequence, and then the fast paced cutting. It often feels like they want you to feel a certain way regardless if you feel that way. Does that make sense? So I felt a little bit taken back by that. A little bit more at ease when the action scene is allowed to play out. The car chases particularly are fun in this. I think they are shot well. The chemistry with the dialogue with our main protagonist, when you have Diane Silvers in that, she isn't in it for a lot, but she was fine. She has a very throwaway character. She is the MacGuffin that is used for our protagonist to blend on screen together, their paths to meet together. And Sam Worthington is the MacGuffin bad guy. We don't know a lot about him, hardly anything at all, but what he does have on screen, he does do very well with. I bought him as the big bad, and I thought that he gave a lot with what he had. He doesn't have a lot. This film is carried by the characters Z and Sei, and for the most part, I believed all of the action, the choreography, the score with that, all kind of really lightened it to carry the film. And unfortunately, the film did feel long as well. It's 2 hours and 11 minutes long, and I felt the time. I checked on the time multiple times. How many times can you say time in a sentence? Throughout, thinking, oh, it must be almost finished now, and then being amazed that it still had an hour, then being amazed it still had 45 minutes. So as much as I enjoyed this version, I never felt that in the original. Now, it's been some time since I've seen the original, so I'll have to go back and do a fresh comparison. But if you're coming in this with a fresh view, you've never seen the original, I think you enjoy it because the story is there. The actors are great. A lot of time they are eating up with what they're given, as in they're eating up the scene. They're believable in their characters, in the action, in what they're fighting for, the rules, all of that kind of works. But for every action scene that is grounded in reality, so much so that when a person is knocked out, for example, the person that is knocked out, the person goes back to check that they are knocked out because the way they knocked them out wouldn't necessarily have knocked them out completely. So that's like, it's realistic and grounded. There are scenes that are just totally unbelievable and people shouldn't be alive and they shouldn't be able to have dodged all those bullets. So you're going to have to put a sense of believability to a side. But when it comes to assassin films, there are certain rules that we do. You want the hero or the antagonist to win. You want them to be able to defy the odds, and the amount of henchmen that are coming at them, you want them to win out in the day. So it would be terrible, like it would be a really short film if it was total accuracy and they dodged a bullet but then they got shot 6 times and the film was 2 minutes long. You know, that wouldn't be a very fun film. So there are certain rules when it comes to these Hollywood-esque assassin films that you put believability to a side somewhat. And the film does itself justice when it grounds itself slightly in reality. So when you have the unbelievable stuff, you can go, yeah, okay, but here's the bit of grounded reality in it to make it somewhat believable. I did have to question that believability that I was trying to put aside somewhat when I saw someone shoot a grenade and the grenade exploded into fire rather than what a grenade would actually do. So for every tick this film gets, there's a what? For every action scene that I get to see, there's 8 cuts I counted in one 10 to 15 second action sequence. So much so, I wondered why they were cutting so much. And then the next scene will play out and you get to see a 30-second action scene. Well, maybe 20. So it contradicts itself left, right, and center. When it's great, it's awesome. When it's not so good, it's... I think I will go round and round in circles going, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, this bit didn't quite make sense. Yeah, I really enjoyed the acting and the chemistry, but the original was better. This is still John Woo directing an action film and for that alone, it's worth watching. I'm gonna give this 2.75 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
You got one.
If I wanted to give it a 3, but the more I think about it, the more I sit with it, the more I know that this was in not production hell, but John Woo wanted to make this film for many years and finally have managed to do that. I just wonder why remake a classic of his own that is still just fantastic. So yeah, boggles the mind once again, but you know, if you're going to enjoy this as a one-time watch, let me know if you've seen both originals. What is your favorite John Woo film? It'd be very hard for me to pick, but I have a real soft spot for Face Off. I absolutely love that film. I think John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, that's one of their best performances. So let me know your thoughts and feelings about this in the comments below. Thanks so much for being a part of the Ruby Tuesday, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.